My name is Marya Lowry. I am a actor and a voice teacher and a voice explorer. And that's me, and a grandmother and a mother and
Wow.
all the other things.
Yay. All right. So we'll be talking about Unboundaried Voice from Laughter to Lament today. How did you get into this work?
I had already been a student of the Roy Hart voice work. And so I was doing a project with some other people who are Roy Hart uh, teachers and people who love this work. And we were working on a project where we were working with telling the stories in our own way of Greek women. And I was working with Medea. And long story short, in my research, now I'd spent a lot of time in Greek with Greeks, the Greek theater, and that was my entrance into theater actually. But in this time of research, I stumbled upon the fact that the Solonic laws in the 6th century, before, the Common Era, the Solonic laws silenced the role of women as lamenters in Greece, which was really their only public voice. So with the silencing of women with these laws, that meant they had no public voice whatsoever. And so I was so captured by that. I thought what was so dangerous about women's voices that they had to be politically silenced. And so I began a research and I just started searching about lamentation. What is lamentation? What does it sound like? Why was it dangerous to them, to the men? And it took me in different places around the world, and it took me into different cultures as I was just searching for sounds of lamentation. And in the beginning, I didn't have any sounds. I really could, all I could find, my first level of research was what people said about it and the criticisms of it. And um, mostly those were from men and men writers. And then as often happens, you start down a road and the path opens up, and I began to find examples and actual resources. Um, and because I taught Master of Fine Arts acting students in the university, I was always interested in how extended voice, getting out beyond the 2, 3 octaves that we are encouraged to use or allowed to use. I was
Mm.
always interested in why that was important for them as actors and as human beings. And so this just dovetailed really well with this research dovetailed with my own teaching and my values as a voice teacher, which have everything to do with giving people permission and giving them a pathway to really express themselves fully. So the two of them married each other, and I started exploring with my students. So they were my first guinea pigs.
That's amazing. Kind of jumping around between interview questions because you brought this up. Can you explain more the extended vocal practice of the Roy Hart Voice Center and kind of, what that is if people don't know about it?
Voice work is a descendant of Alfred Wolfson, who was a German teacher, and he started working with, we might just say, the whole voice and what he called the singing lesson. And it was intended to, I mean, it was really as though singing, not in the way we conventionally think of singing, but singing was a way to open the human being and to connect them to themselves. Then Roy took it into the theater and they moved to France. A lot of devotees of this work moved to France to where we are now and started making theater and studying voice and working with their voices and singing in non-traditional ways. So this was the 60s, and there is at the heart of the work is this assumption that we we have two octave voices because we live two octave lives. And that as
Mhm.
we live larger, our voices expand, or as our voices expand, we start to live larger. And there's a lovely phrase that sits at the heart of the work. And while it may not be true for everyone, the idea is the search for the eight octave voice that we all have within us, the capacity to have enormous colors, qualities, sounds, pitches, timbres, and they're available to us. It just takes some excavating. And I would sum up the work that way, that it really is about inviting the individual into finding their own sound, their own freedom of sound, and the many possible colors of their sound.
Wow. Yeah, I love the way
Yeah.
you put that because it's so true. Like in the society, there's always like you could only be in this only quiet or like, oh, your inside voice and your outside voice. That's really like the
Right.
only two levels. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can see why that would open up for me as I was exploring and as I was using my own voice. Theater doesn't really offer us a whole lot of opportunities, though there are laments and very heightened experiences in the theater in plays, but not everybody knows how to get there or even wants to hear it. So the lamentation work just dovetailed with that because I was already doing it. I didn't have a name for it. And then it people were interested and it sort of has grown from there. And then it goes underground a little bit and I'm doing other things. Uh, yeah. And then it comes back up and
What is something that kind of people can expect when attending this workshop?
we do body work. We do a lot of work to open up the body, open up the breath, connect the participant, sounder, singer to breath and movement in order to connect to many different kinds of sounds. And then we start to explore putting building blocks or elements of lamentation that I have uncovered from, years of investigating it. I should say I'm not an archaeologist in that I'm not teaching this work or offering this work as a way to say this is how it's done. It's only done this way because every culture has lamentation in their history.
Yeah.
Um, and it was silenced in the 15th, 16th, 17th century, both politically and by the churches, both Catholic, Roman Catholic, and Protestantism. And it all had to do with silencing women and taking away women always had kind of controlled the birth processes and the death processes. And as the political system and the doctors came up and the priests, they wanted to take the ownership of those processes away from women. They
Yeah.
became outlawed across Europe and China, and I mean, really around the world. There are, of course, pockets where people are still lamenting, and cultures have their own styles and their own ways. My work is less, I'm not teaching people it's this way. There's one way to do it. This is how they do it in Ireland or Russia or but just gleaning the kinds of sounds people use and the rhythms people use and so much of that intersects across cultures.
Hmm.
And so we practice exploring for the pleasure of using our voices. And I call it laughter to lament because we do work with joy and praise and celebration and all those sounds available to us. And then we also work with sadness and grief. And some people might want to work with it just theoretically as a means of learning how to touch into those things. And other people may want to bring their own stories to the work. And it's all fair game for me. And we hold the room for each other. The processes of lamentation have always been communal. And I consider that to be a big part of the way we work, which is when we come together, we're a community, we're working together, we're learning together, we're exploring together, and we're supporting each other. We become lamentation doulas, if you will.
Yeah. I can only imagine the space that you'll create at WildHeart. It'll be so intimate and like, it'll be just that group of people. Because I mean, it's true. Like the grief is so in this society, especially, no one talks about grief. No one talks about kind of the
That's
lamentation
right.
process too. What are the benefits of attending kind of this event?
People come for different reasons.
Of
And it's
course.
always fascinating to me what draws somebody into the room. Sometimes it's people in theater, it's voice teachers that want to expand their own potential for expression, or they want to expand their vocabulary. They want more ways of working with students and actors. Some people are interested in it because they want to do voice work and they're not so in touch with their voices. And this
Mhm.
is a way of just connecting to your own voice. Others are just curious, what the heck is this? And how would I do this and how does it have meaning for me? And I really love how people come into the room because they're just curious. And and that and we meet on a, if it's fair to say, we meet on even ground. Whatever brings us into the room, we work together with our own interests. To be more specific with your question, I think what people take away from it, well, I just finished a workshop yesterday, and one woman said many times, this has changed my life. Now, she's a movement practitioner and she works with people and body work, and she just felt like she learned and it opened something for her. There was a gentleman, there was one of the men in the room who is an epic storyteller from the UK. And he said from the first day, he said, I think I've been looking for this all my life. And as the week went on, there was just the sense of it's archetypal what we do. It is epic what we do.
Yeah.
And so it really spoke to him as a man who practices epic storytelling. And for some, they really come and explore how do you give voice to your own grief in a way that is healthy, that we
Wow.
can support. I don't run a grief circle. It is not a grief group. And we're seeing more of those, developing in this
Hmm.
day and age now, which is a beautiful thing. I don't call it a grief group because I'm really interested in inviting people into something bigger. Body work, breath work, sounding, exploration, and then how they want to use it.
And it must be so incredible hearing that as a teacher as well. Like all these just amazing. Do you have kind of any final thoughts that you have with this? We want to talk about workshop. What would you want like others to kind of know about last second?
Well, the one thing I would say, just in terms of the workshop and coming and making it a retreat, is it really is a generous space. I'm always just so humbled by people coming into the room uh, and returning. I mean, there are people who come back time and time again because they want to go deeper. They want to know how can they make it more their own or incorporate it into their lives. And I think it's really important to have a sense that there is a strong container. We make a container for this work. So it's not kind of a free for all. It's not an emotional free for all.
Hmm.
There is a container, and that word doesn't necessarily mean a lot to people outside of the theater, but it means we have a way, we have a kind of system. There are elements and building blocks, and people work to their comfort level. And we make that space available for people. And when I say we, my experience is that everybody in the room is of the same mind of we are explorers here and we want to support each other in our explorations.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this interview and kind of giving your insight on this beautiful work that you're doing. You'll be at WildHeart from September 18th to 21st. We're so excited. I know this is your
Thanks,
like
Melissa.
second time doing it as well here at WildHeart.
This is my second time at WildHeart, and it was really wonderful last year. It's a beautiful space. It's such a great place to be. Even the space contains us and makes it, welcome. We're welcome in when we come to WildHeart. It's a beautiful community. And I was so struck last year by the generosity of the people who run the retreat center. And everybody commented on how welcome they felt, and the food is wonderful, and the space is wonderful, and we're well cared for there. So
Thank you for your words. And thank
yeah.
you, Maya. I really appreciate your time.